The camera opens on the familiar backdrop of Washington, D.C., the White House illuminated in the pale morning light, the hum of reporters echoing through the press gallery. In a live interview on Fox News, US President Donald Trump has just confirmed what many had speculated for weeks, that he will meet China's President Xi Jinping at the upcoming APEC summit in South Korea. The announcement, made with Trump's trademark confidence, has immediately set off a ripple across diplomatic and financial circles from Washington to Beijing. "I mean, we're doing very well with China," Trump told Fox anchor Maria Bartiromo. "I don't know what's going to happen. We're going to meet in a couple of weeks. We're going to meet in South Korea, actually, with President Xi and other people too. But we're going to meet. We have a separate meeting. It is a short statement, but one packed with meaning. The prospect of a direct Trump-Xi encounter, their first since Trump's return to office, adds a new and unpredictable element to an already tense global landscape." The APEC summit, to be hosted in Busan, South Korea, was expected to focus on post-pandemic recovery and regional trade. Now it has become a stage for one of the most consequential bilateral talks in the world. Trump's tone during the interview carried a mix of bravado and calculated ambiguity. "We'll see what happens with China," he said. "I've always had a great relationship with them, as you know, but they're always looking for an edge. You know, they ripped off our country for years. They made with Bush, with everybody. Obama was terrible." For long-time observers of Trump's political style, the remarks were classic, a blend of grievance and negotiation, accusation and anticipation. The message was clear. Trump is reopening the playing field with China, but on his own terms. In Washington, officials familiar with trade policy described the announcement as strategically timed. The US economy is facing pressure on multiple fronts: tariffs, inflation, and supply chain instability. At the same time, Beijing's economic growth has slowed amid tightening US export restrictions on semiconductors and high-end technology. A meeting between the two presidents, even a brief one, could recalibrate the balance of economic diplomacy in the Asia-Pacific. Analysts say the choice of venue, South Korea, is significant. Seoul has become a crossroads of American strategic interests, a US ally, a key semiconductor producer, and a bridge between Washington and Asian capitals wary of both superpowers. Holding a Trump-Xi meeting there places South Korea squarely in the center of global diplomacy, a role it has long sought but rarely occupied so prominently. As the Fox interview continued, Trump pivoted from China to another of his foreign policy trademarks: the Abraham Accords. "The Abraham Accords are a miracle in a way," he said, his tone softening. "And the four countries that went in initially, including the UAE, highly respected, they stayed in and they're doing incredibly well. They're basically trading with Israel and have access and everything else. Good for everybody. I hope to see Saudi Arabia go in, and I hope to see others go in. I think when Saudi Arabia goes in, everybody goes in. Highly respected." That one paragraph sent headlines flashing across the world. Trump, who brokered the Abraham Accords during his first term, was not only revisiting the agreement, he was hinting at its next phase. The former-turned-current president now says he expects Saudi Arabia to join, a move that could redefine Middle Eastern alliances once again. For years, normalization between Israel and Saudi Arabia was considered the holy grail of regional diplomacy, a step that could anchor stability, reshape oil diplomacy, and possibly open the door to a broader US-Arab security framework. Trump's remark suggests that quiet, back-channel discussions may already be underway, likely involving his son-in-law Jared Kushner, who played a key role in the original accords. The timing of these comments is not coincidental. In recent months, Riyadh has been cautiously recalibrating its global posture. Crown Prince Mohammed bin Salman has maintained open channels with Washington while deepening economic ties with Beijing and Moscow. In that context, Trump's suggestion that when Saudi Arabia goes in, everybody goes in, carries both optimism and a hint of challenge, a message that the United States intends to reclaim its role as the ultimate broker in the region. For the White House, these dual messages on China and on Saudi Arabia reflect a broader diplomatic strategy. Trump is signaling that America is back in full transactional mode, ready to negotiate hard and deal directly. But this approach also carries risk. Each overture opens multiple fronts: trade talks with China, security assurances in the Middle East, and economic leverage in Asia, all of which could collide if expectations are not carefully managed. Political analysts in Washington were quick to note the familiar cadence of Trump's remarks. His language, direct, emotional, often hyperbolic, is part of what his supporters call straight talk and his critics call strategic chaos. But even his detractors acknowledge one thing: when Trump sets a meeting, the world pays attention. In Beijing, officials offered no immediate reaction, but Chinese state media noted the constructive tone of Trump's comments while cautioning that mutual respect must guide any dialogue. Behind closed doors, Chinese analysts are likely weighing the potential benefits of engagement. A direct meeting with Trump could offer Beijing a chance to ease trade tensions, secure supply chain guarantees, and test the new administration's stance on Taiwan and the South China Sea. In Seoul, preparations for the APEC summit have taken on new urgency. South Korea's President Yoon Suk-yeol, who has carefully cultivated strong ties with Washington, will now find himself hosting two of the most powerful and unpredictable leaders on Earth. For South Korea, the stakes are high. A successful summit could elevate its diplomatic stature, but a misstep could place it at the center of superpower confrontation. The news has also stirred reactions across global markets. Wall Street opened higher on speculation that renewed US-China dialogue might ease tariff pressures. Technology firms, particularly semiconductor giants in Taiwan and South Korea, saw modest gains. Meanwhile, oil markets reacted to Trump's mention of Saudi Arabia, with prices fluctuating amid hopes that normalization could stabilize energy trade routes across the Red Sea and Gulf. In the Arab world, Trump's remarks revived both excitement and caution. Supporters of the Abraham Accords in the United Arab Emirates, Bahrain, and Morocco hailed the idea of Saudi participation as a natural next step. But in other capitals, including Tehran and Ankara, the response was more guarded. Iranian officials accused Washington of pushing artificial peace while fueling real wars. Turkish media, meanwhile, questioned whether the new phase of the Accords could undercut Ankara's own regional influence. For the families of those affected by conflict still raging across the Middle East, from Gaza to southern Lebanon, Trump's words stirred complicated emotions. The promise of normalization is powerful, but the wounds of recent wars are still raw. Many wonder what peace means if it comes without justice, or if it simply reshuffles alliances without addressing the human toll. Back in Washington, the atmosphere around Trump's second-term foreign policy is one of cautious calculation. His advisors describe him as energized, confident, and eager to reclaim diplomatic momentum. Supporters see in him a deal-maker unafraid of confrontation. Critics see a leader reviving old rivalries under the banner of negotiation. Either way, the coming weeks promise to test both Trump's political instincts and his ability to manage the complexities of global diplomacy. As Fox News replayed excerpts of the interview throughout the day, pundits parsed every phrase. "We're doing very well with China," he had said, a line that could mean either progress or posturing. "They ripped off our country for years," he added, a reminder that beneath Trump's willingness to talk lies deep resentment over what he views as decades of unfair trade practices. Diplomats in Washington privately concede that the Trump-Xi dynamic is unique. The two men share a mutual understanding of power and spectacle. Both are showmen, both thrive on unpredictability, but they also represent nations locked in systemic rivalry. For Trump, meeting Xi in South Korea offers a stage to demonstrate leadership. For Xi, it is a chance to test the limits of Trump's pragmatism. Meanwhile, Trump's reference to Saudi Arabia reveals a pattern: the use of symbolic milestones to project progress. The Abraham Accords remain one of his signature achievements, and extending them to include Saudi Arabia would be a crowning moment. It would also serve to contrast his approach with that of his predecessors, particularly the Obama administration, which favored multilateral negotiations over Trump's transactional diplomacy. Foreign policy veterans recall how Trump often framed his achievements in personal terms, as deals rather than doctrines. In his view, success is measured not by treaties ratified or alliances strengthened, but by moments captured, handshakes, summits, televised announcements. This upcoming meeting with Xi Jinping could become one of those defining images. Two presidents sitting across a polished table in Busan, each calculating how much to give and how much to hold back. As the countdown to the summit continues, global attention turns to the choreography of diplomacy. What will Trump demand from Xi? What concessions might Beijing offer? And how will the rest of the world, from Europe to the Gulf, interpret this new wave of engagement? Already, aides are reportedly drafting multiple talking points: trade, tariffs, technology access, and currency stability. Yet beneath those technical issues lies something more fundamental, a contest over who sets the rules of the 21st century economy. For the moment, Trump seems eager to keep everyone guessing. His public remarks often serve as trial balloons, testing reactions before policies are finalized. But those who have followed his presidency know that when Trump says, "We'll see what happens," it usually means something big is already in motion. In the final moments of the Fox interview, Trump leaned back and smiled as Bartiromo pressed him on the Middle East. "I hope to see Saudi Arabia go in," he said again, "and I hope to see others go in." It was part reassurance, part invitation, and entirely deliberate. Because for Trump, diplomacy is not a static art. It is theatre, negotiation, and narrative, all unfolding in real time before the cameras. And in that performance, every word, every pause, every meeting location carries weight. As Air Force One prepares for its upcoming trip to Asia, the anticipation builds. South Korea, long accustomed to being the stage for high-stakes diplomacy, from inter-Korean talks to US-Japan summits, now braces for another moment of history. The eyes of the world will be on Busan, where two presidents, two systems, and two visions for the global order will once again collide. The path ahead remains uncertain, but one thing is clear. Trump has re-entered the global stage with the same instinct that defined his earlier years: to dominate the conversation, to set the terms, and to leave the world waiting for what happens next.